What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Women Who Lead event. This summit has been absolutely amazing. And today, I want you to get ready to be inspired by this phenomenal woman. Okay. Her name is Radisha Dixon. She's widely known as Dixon, and I hope she corrects me because I probably said that wrong. And she's an empowering voice for women who refuse to freaking settle. All right. She is the author of the transformative books, No More Broken Records, 5 Tips to Change Your Tune and Transform Your Life, and Queens Don't Settle. I just love that name. Okay. It's a book of poems to empower women like you, as well as a co-author of multiple bestsellers. Like, this woman is a force to be reckoned with. Now, through her writing and her podcast, Queens Don't Settle, and speaking to Radisha, she is on a mission to help women embrace their worth, elevate their lives, and create thriving businesses without compromising their self-love or relationships. Now, today she's going to lead us in a powerful session on nurturing the entrepreneur within. All right. Self-love and relationships. And you guys know that you're here for that, right? You are here for that. You're here for nurturing that entrepreneur within. So let's give a very warm welcome to Radisha Dixon. Welcome. How are you?
I am doing well. What an intro. Thank you.
I'm really glad you're here. I adore you. I adore everything about you. And you're just a very savvy, smart woman and a very savvy, smart businesswoman. And so we are here to really impact these women's lives. And I am excited about this conversation and what the gems you're going to be dropping, because I know they're coming. Okay. So I really wanted to start off with self-love as the foundation for this. Okay. So Radisha, you often emphasize self-love as a cornerstone for success, right? So
Yes.
how can these women who are here, these entrepreneurs, these aspiring entrepreneurs, how can they cultivate self-love in their daily lives? And I also want to know why this is essential for building a thriving business. So talk
Oh,
to
yeah.
us about that.
Sure. So self-love is pretty much, it's a foundational. It's the foundation of pretty much everything, right? Like, cultivating self-love is essential for women entrepreneurs because without that, I mean, I just don't think there's a way for you to really fully embrace all of who you are. One of the things, or I have some bullet points that I'm just going to go. And so just to let you all know, if I look down, it's just because I'm making sure that I hit some of the points that I want to discuss with you all. But it enhances, personal well-being, obviously, and it contributes significantly to building a thriving business. So, in terms of daily practices for self-love, the first one is prioritizing self-care. I mean, I can't stress that enough. You have to make time for doing things that improve your self-care, that nourish you, right? It helps you reduce stress. It helps you obviously boost your overall happiness. And when you do that, that leads to enhanced productivity, for example. That leads to creativity, right? Because you are nurturing you. And so naturally you're going to have more space and you're going to have the mental bandwidth for different ideas and things to come to you. So number one, definitely goes without saying, would be to prioritize self-care. Because again, cultivating self-care, it's so essential. It just goes without saying, ladies. You have to take care of you, right? You have to take care of you. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I'm still going to mention it. Is think about the flight attendant, right? And she always says to put the oxygen mask on yourself first. And there's a reason for that, right? Because you have to. You've got to take care of you first. And then you can, give it to the other person. You have to take care of you first. Because if you give it to them first and then there's nothing left for you, well, then now, for example, they're without mom. And that, you don't want that to happen, right? So you put it on you first and then you give it to the child, for example. And both of you guys are good, right? Because you took care of you first, right? They need you, okay? And guess what? You need you. All right. So number one is prioritizing self-care. Number two, I have as boundaries. So Healthy boundaries. Let me say, there's no such thing as anything perfect. Okay, nobody's perfect. We are all trying to figure life out, honey. Okay, entrepreneurs, successful people that are maybe just starting out, like, don't think this is about perfection in any way. Okay, my saying is always progression. It's about progression, not perfection. Right? This is a journey. For you to think about starting a business, I believe it's a very spiritual practice. Like, entrepreneurship, I say it's a very spiritual thing, because you are going to be stretched and pulled in every way. You're going to really grow and expand. And that's what's supposed to happen. So it's not about perfection, just progression, okay? Specifically when it comes to business, it's so interesting because I was on a call maybe a couple days ago, and I guess we'll just say mentor, she was talking about the same thing. And so you've got to learn to say no to things that are draining your energy, or that they just don't align with your goals, right? You can't be everything to everyone. You just can't, right? There's the saying that the surefire way to failure is trying to please everyone, right? Like, it's impossible. You can't, okay? So setting healthy boundaries, learning to say no, because you can't. You're just going to be pulled in so many different directions. And if you don't incorporate those boundaries or implement them and have them, you're likely to end up empty. And I'm speaking from experience. You're going to end up empty. And that shouldn't happen, and it doesn't need to happen. Okay? You've got to learn to start saying no. Okay? You are not any less of a good person for saying no to someone, right? You're not less of a good woman, a good Christian, a good soul. You're not any less than anything for honoring your boundaries. Okay, that protects your mental space, your time, and it really allows you to focus on what's most important. Okay, it is not about being everything to everyone and making sure everybody's happy, right? You're going to be stretched in so many different directions, and you're going to end up on E. And again, that's not necessary, okay? Have and set healthy boundaries. Number 3, I love affirmations. I'm an affirmation girl. I always have affirmations playing, usually, in my space. I have affirmations in my car even. So no, surprisingly enough, I don't listen to the radio a lot. I'm doing better, but I don't really listen to the radio a lot, just because I want my mind saturated with positivity. Like, I want my mind saturated with things that will actually, like, elevate me or uplift me or empower me, or encourage me in some type of way. And so they have, some people have CDs that are very motivational, like the Audible stuff that you can listen to even on Amazon. But I've burned my CDs, and I have that stuff in my car, and I want, when I'm even driving, I want my mind to be saturated with positive affirmations, right? So I believe in that. I believe that they help to sort of help you reinforce your worth, what's possible for you, kind of expand your mind, because we all have limiting beliefs, okay? Listen, none of us have it all figured out. I promise you we don't, okay? Like, it's a process, it's a journey, and this is not some overnight success journey either. As I said, you're going to be pulled and stretched, and things might erupt, and I mean, it's literally, it can be up and down, and an emotional roller coaster sometimes, but everything is happening for you, okay? And it's happening for you to evolve, and for you to elevate your consciousness and become exactly who you said you wanted to become. If you want to be this successful businesswoman or multimillionaire entrepreneur or whatever it is, right? It doesn't even have to be business specifically. I know this is what this is about, but you might one day think, you know what, I don't want to do this and I want to do something else. But the principle you take with you wherever you go, okay? Positive affirmations. No, none of us have it all figured out, okay? It's a journey, okay? But they help combat self-doubt, build confidence, and to me, they're just affirmations. I just think are really good for navigating, or at least helping with some of the challenges we're going to come up against in entrepreneurship. It helps to have that positivity kind of playing. Okay. The next thing I have down is achievements. So I've always said this, and I'm just like you, y'all. Okay. Everything I'm telling you, I got to give myself to. You got to take time to really celebrate yourself. Like, you have to do that. And I don't care how small of an accomplishment it is, like, you need to pat yourself on the back. You need to celebrate every, not just milestone, but everything that you do, because that will help give you a sense of pride, but also sort of help foster your belief in what's possible for you. Okay. Like, it's not always about the big ones. It is also about the smaller thing. Listen, there are a lot of women that are going through what they're going through. Like, look at the world that we live in right now, right? Life is really lifing for a lot of people. The loneliness epidemic, everything going on in the world, right? It's very easy to get lost. And for some people, depending on where they're at, waking up and, getting out of bed and going for a walk outside to get some fresh air, it might be small to you, but for that person, that's a huge step. Because imagine if that woman was depressed, imagine if, unfortunately, say she was suicidal and something, luckily snapped inside of her, or maybe she heard something, right? Maybe she listened to me or you or someone else, and she decided, no, let me give life another shot, right? And for her, getting up, waking up, going to brush her teeth and going to shower, then going outside and walking, it's huge. And that's something that needs to be celebrated. I am a proponent for celebrating everything along the way. And what I learned from Lisa Nichols, what you celebrate gets repeated. So you celebrate everything so that way we can attract more that you have to celebrate. Okay. And then the last thing I'm just going to say, of course, it's just surrounding yourself with support and good people. You definitely want to be around people that lift you up, inspire you, can provide encouragement, because this is not easy. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and make it seem like you just come up with an idea and the next day you execute, and then the next day it goes to market. Like, I call it the microwave. It's like the microwave, the week where everything is like Monday through Sunday, or even Monday through Friday. You come up with an idea and then you think you're going to be like successful by Friday. And it's like, that's not reality. You need to be honest with yourself about this journey, what it really entails, what it takes, who you're going to become in the process. And like I said, stretched and different things are going to shift in your life and happen along your path of becoming, because that's what you're doing. You're becoming, your best self, or you're becoming this successful woman. And that's probably different than the previous version of you. So this new version of you that you're stepping into, oh honey, it's probably going to be different, and you're going to operate different and differently than you have in the past. But cultivating self-love it's really a foundational aspect of building, a successful business, and it's imperative for your overall well-being.
All right. I wasn't sure if you were done. I was writing notes like crazy. So awesome sauce. Okay. So I got a lot of great notes, and I'm sure that these women did too, right? Because you talked about how self-love is literally the foundation. It's where you have to start and build, right? It's without it, you can't even have that well-being in your life, but also in your business. And you talked about how prioritizing self-care. I love the example of the oxygen mask, because you're 100% right. And we don't always think about that. What I did in my business is I gave so much that I actually ran out of oxygen. And this is what
Mhm.
happens when you start to feel burnt out, when you have high anxiety, when you're waking up with it on your mind, going to sleep with it on your mind. Like, that's when you know that you've hit a level of possible burnout and you're not putting the oxygen mask on first. So that was awesome, because you
Absolutely.
talked about there's things that we need to have to feed us, right? Whether it's exercise or meditation or hobbies. When you said hobbies, my brain went, oh shoot, I don't have, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't have any hobbies. And it's
Oh
not
my
because
God.
yeah, it's not because I don't want to. It's because I've been working so much that I haven't paused to say, what is my hobby? You know what I mean? Like, what is my hobby? So that's pretty like impactful. I was like, oh shoot, I got to pick up a hobby. And then you talked about having healthy boundaries, right? So progression, not perfection. I freaking love that. And I love, this is something I've been working on a lot in my life and my business, is entrepreneurship is spiritual.
Yes.
100%. Because when I was like, oh, affirmations are too woo woo. And then I saw myself actually bringing those affirmations in because I needed some woo woo in my life. Then I realized, okay, girl, you need those affirmations. It's so funny because we all have limiting beliefs. And I love that you said that to them, right? Because, ladies, the truth is, yes, you do have limiting beliefs, and that is natural for the course. And,
Absolutely.
even if you're a six figure, seven figure, eight, you are going to have limiting beliefs. This is just a natural progression of life and of mindset. It just is. And
It's
you
a
just have to
human
learn.
experience. It's a part of your
Exactly.
human experience.
Exactly. And you have to learn to combat that, right? So it's happening for you, not to you, for you to evolve, right?
Yeah.
Beautiful. And then you talked about achievements, right? Taking time to celebrate yourself, even the small ones. And thank you for using the example of whether or not just getting up and going for a walk might be a big deal for someone, because that
Yes.
is true. When I suffered with depression many, many moons ago, getting up out of bed was a huge deal.
Exactly.
Huge
Exactly.
deal. So that was awesome. And then you talked about what I always talk about, which is support and community, right? Having people around you to support you. Like-minded people is
Yes.
huge, is huge. So find yourself a community of like-minded people, people that are maybe on the same trajectory and track as you are, because you guys can share the woes together and the wins together. That was
Hmm.
awesome. I love that
Thank
so
you.
much. So I want to get into, since you talked about all of these points about self-care, I do want to talk about breaking free from limiting beliefs, right? Because we talked about that and touched on it. Many women are really struggling with this. They struggle with, am I even doing the right thing? Is this right? Can I do this? Am I smart enough? Do I have the skill sets? These are really big things that happen to us, right? And as you pointed
Yeah.
out, limiting beliefs is something that we're going to have no matter what. Right.
Right.
But when these women right now who are listening are starting or scaling their businesses right now, I would like you to give them like practical steps that they can take to shift that mindset and embrace that full potential that you and I both know they have.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
So when it comes to sort of breaking free from patterns, just know that it's a process, right? Everything we're doing, it's a process, it's a journey. You're on your journey. So just again, keep in mind progression over perfection. You're not obligated to know everything and feel like you have to have everything figured out. It's not going to happen, okay? It's not going to happen. But as far as breaking free from certain patterns, the first thing I wrote down for that is self reflection. So, something I talk about in No More Broken Records, that the very first chapter actually is self awareness, right? So, self awareness is really imperative and it's really key, right? The self reflection, introspection. You have to really take time to reflect on your feelings, your desires, but you also, to me, you need to reflect on your patterns, right? You need to be able to look back and recognize, come to an awareness and say, you know what, whether it's relationships, whatever it is in your life, but if you're honest with yourself, you're going to see certain patterns in maybe people that you've dated, in ways that you have behaved, in ways that you've operated. You're going to see patterns. And so you have to have that self reflection in order to be able to do something different because you can't change what you won't acknowledge. Okay. You can't change what you won't acknowledge. So you have to be honest with yourself. I am a proponent for journaling. Just like I said with the affirmations, I think those are very helpful, but I also am a fan of journaling. I think journaling can really help you clarify what you want. And it's like you're literally writing everything down from up here. And when you at some point go back and you look at what you've written, you will probably see some patterns. If you start journaling, regularly, I'm telling you, when you go back to look at it, you will see some patterns and you'll probably get some ahas from yourself like, oh, okay, I didn't know that I felt this way, or I didn't realize that I, did this and this and that, and these, patterns were there in the relationships. And, so self-reflection is number one because you have to understand your needs and you also have to understand why you have done some of the things that you've done and in the ways that you've done it. There's a reason for that. I'm not going to go too deep into it, but it goes all the way back to your childhood and having to really uncover what you learned, what you were exposed to in your childhood that has kind of helped contribute to where you are now, to your beliefs as an adult woman. They pretty much stem from childhood. And so you have to do that self reflection to really come to a higher level of awareness. And then once you recognize it, you can then decide to do something differently. The second thing that I have written down for that goes again back to back. You've got to have boundaries. And that's something that's new for me too. I'll be honest, right? That's boundaries is not something that I certainly grew up with, or even as I would say, I mean, I'm 40. How old am I? 41 years young. Yeah, that's not something that I was, privy to. That's something in the most recent years in my journey that I have learned about and have obviously now, started to incorporate boundaries. But you have to establish boundaries that align with your values, because that will help you really from it'll help you prevent yourself from like compromising on the things that matter the most to you. So you definitely want to establish boundaries. The third thing I have goes back to support in terms of breaking free. You want to surround yourself with the right people. You have to really be around people that are good for your nervous system. That's something in recent times that I've come across as well. And I tend to say that to myself now is I want people that are good for your nervous system. Like you want to be around people that you actually feel good around and that you can be yourself with, right? Not You don't have to put on a facade, you don't have to perform for people. You want to be around people that are good for yourself. And an outside perspective obviously can help you see things differently. The next thing I have down is just really sort of taking small steps, or I say, taking the first step. One of the quotes I always love by Dr. Martin Luther King was, taking the first step. You don't have to see the whole staircase, but just take the first step, right? Just one thing each time, each day, one step, just like a car driving, with maybe only headlights on. They talked about it in the movie The Secret, Jack Canfield, and it's like, as you keep driving along, that the road will just keep being revealed to you. So taking that small steps that really align with your design. So engaging in new hobbies, exploring new career opportunities, really making small changes that truly, I would say, align with your desire. And then last thing, as far as breaking free from your patterns, of course, is just to cultivate self-love. Really focus on building your self-esteem and self-worth. And when you engage in activities that make you feel good about yourself, and you pursue those interests, and you celebrate all of the small steps along the way. You celebrate yourself along the way. All of these things will, to me, help you kind of actively sort of, break free from those patterns, and you can certainly create more fulfilling and professional lives that really kind of reflect your true self.
Yeah, I love this, right? Because you started off by saying it's a process and you will not have it all figured out. So all of you who are listening, you won't. You won't. And even when you think you do, you don't.
Right.
You realize there's still so much more to learn. And that's a
Oh
beautiful
my
thing
God.
about it, right? That's the beauty of being an entrepreneur, is that you get to create what you want to create and how you want to create it. And
Yeah.
that means change, evolving. That means starting off one way and ending another way. And that's
Yeah.
okay. It's all a process. I love that you talked about that self reflection, right? The awareness of your feelings, of your desires. And I love the patterns, right? Because we normally don't realize that we have patterns. You do. You have a rhythm
Yeah.
of talking, a rhythm of walking, a pattern of, speaking to people. There
Yeah.
are patterns. And because I'm on so much on the YouTube and the TV and the live and whatever, I see my patterns and I'm like, oh, you
Mhm.
do that a lot. You need to change that a little bit. I don't like that. So you need to be honest with yourself. I love that you said that. And I added, there's no judgment. Don't judge
No.
yourself. Just be honest with yourself. She didn't say judge yourself. She said be
No.
honest, right? Because you might have patterns that are not very forthcoming for your business or forthcoming for others. And that's okay. You have to look at that and say, I don't like the way I say that. Maybe I need to
Right.
change my tone
Right.
and it's because sometimes we pick up like defensive patterns and mechanisms that aren't serving us well. And so being
Absolutely.
honest does not mean judging you. It just means looking at it and saying, okay, maybe this is something I need to acknowledge and maybe change or enhance, right? And
Right.
also the journaling, Radisha, actually, you're 1,000% right on this one because I realized that I was thinking, oh, I don't know if I did everything I wanted to do for 2024 until I looked at my journal and realized, wow, I did a lot actually. Right. And I think it's
Yeah.
a good way. It's a good booster. Like you said, to really compliment yourself also for the small steps. You talked about boundaries, right? And they help you to prevent compromising on yourself. Love
Yes.
that. Then you talked about breaking free, like being around people that are good for you and good for your nervous system. Radisha, that was powerful.
Yes, honey. So
Yes. Because you don't normally think about that. Oh God, I got to be around them. They aggravate me. Then you shouldn't be around them. Right. You should think
mhm.
about, and I'm not saying to get rid of your family because sometimes it's family. What I'm saying is that also understand why you're reacting that way, you know,
Right. And I would
because
say to that, don't deny that either, because a lot of women often they do not listen to their intuition. And I
yeah,
can say that more. Listen to your intuition. There's a reason why you feel that way and it's coming up in your body. Don't suppress it, let it come up to the surface, and then you figure out why it's happening. You need
yeah.
people that are good for your nervous system.
I agree with that. I love that you said take the first step, right? You don't see the whole staircase. Take that first step, right? And then always back to the cultivating the self love so that you can cultivate that in your business, right? And talking about that, I wanted to kind of give them this thing. I wanted to kind of end with this, and it's that role of that self love because that's going to bring up vulnerability, Radisha. All right, let's be real. You got to be cultivating self love, you got to be in a vulnerable place. And as entrepreneurs, as you know, vulnerability can be very risky, especially if you're an entrepreneur and a coach who's doing their business online. Right. So that's a very vulnerable place to be. So I wanted to ask you on your expertise about this because it often feels risky, but I also know that it can lead to authenticity and growth. Right.
Yeah.
So I want you to talk to them about how they can really navigate vulnerability in their relationships and foster authenticity and resilience, like still be resilient even if you're vulnerable. Does that make sense?
Mhm. It does. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, so vulnerability. Whew, that's a word that some people are afraid of, afraid to be vulnerable and transparent. But
Yes. Uh-huh. Me too.
I believe in the power of transparency and vulnerability. And like she said, it can feel risky, but it's a very powerful tool for like fostering authenticity and resilience, right? This world is yearning for more authentic people, right? People are tired of the facades and people putting on a show and a performance. Like we want deep, authentic, healthy, connections and friendships and relationships, right? But that starts with you actually being authentic and willing to be vulnerable. And I have written down here, number one is embrace authenticity. That authenticity, is really key to long lasting success and fulfillment because you can create deeper connections with people. I mean, in life and business, and you're not just sharing all the good, but you share the challenges and you share your fears. And when you're authentic like that, you relate with others, and then that, of course, helps build trust and connection. Right? Like I want to know that you're a human being, right? We're having a human experience, and we're going to have good days, we're going to have bad days, up and down. It's life, right? I say that I did a video at least in 2024, and I said it's kind of cyclical. I feel like it's cyclical to where sometimes you're up here, right? You're at the peak, and then maybe you've learned everything that you've learned, and you're going to circle back down to maybe a valley just because there's some new things and some new information that you need to acquire. And then once you do that, right, because you may have hit a plateau, and then once you come back down and you learn the new information and acquire, then you go right back up again to the top, to the peak or to the mountain. So I feel like to some degree it's very cyclical. Like life is just like it's just up and down, and that's all ebb and flow. And that's why I always say progression over perfection, and just kind of take it one day at a time, and you're going to evolve. You're supposed to evolve, not feel like you have to have it all figured out. And when you're honest about that, and we talk about those things, you're going to feel a deeper sense of connection and relatability. I believe every woman has a book inside of herself, right? I think every woman needs to tell or share her story because we're a lot more similar than we are different. Just because we're a different shade doesn't mean anything. We're all having a human experience, and for the most part, we're going to go through the same thing, maybe at different times, but we're going to experience the same things. Everyone is going to experience some type of loss in their life. Everyone, for the most part, has experienced a breakup in their life, right? Like everyone is having a human experience. And when we have those genuine, authentic connections and we're willing to be vulnerable and transparent about it, it allows for that trust and deeper connection, right? Something else that I wrote down here is developing emotional intelligence is also important for navigating vulnerability because you've got to understand your emotions and then being able to sort of listen and be able to understand other people's emotions, right? Now, this is not about self abandonment, right? And sort of putting someone before you. That's not what I'm referring to. I'm just saying that you should have a general understanding of your emotion and others. And then that therefore helps you to be able to have the awareness and how maybe you can navigate a certain situation, or certain communication that, might need to be different for you all to have a healthy or a healthier relationship. But it certainly makes it easier to express vulnerability in a more constructive way when you have the emotional intelligence for that. Something else I wrote down is leading by example. And so, of course, that means us, especially as leaders, coaches, gurus, business women, even in corporate America. For those of us, in leadership positions, especially, you've got to be the example. Because at least from my perspective, I've always incorporated a holistic approach as a manager. And to me, when you lead with that, when you as a manager or just a leader in some capacity, when you're open and honest, it's going to encourage your people to do the same. And then it's going to foster sort of an environment that to me leads to the trust and the collaboration because everyone is being vulnerable and transparent and treating each other like humans. That's something I always would talk about in certain corporate America environments is the need for people to be human and treat each other like humans. It just leads to more cohesion, right? When there's space for that, which leads right into my next point about having the open conversations, engaging in the open conversations where you create an environment where people feel like they can, come to you and talk to you and they're encouraged to have that open dialogue with you, right? So you just want to actively listen to feedback and, share what's going on with you, share your personal stories, because I'm telling you, it breeds connection. If I know that you're going through the same thing or you're going to go through something I've already gone through, I can probably give you some advice or share some insight about it, right? That can make your journey a little easier, like what we're doing right here. And so it's so important. It's so important to create an environment where that healthy dialogue is welcomed because it certainly also, I would say, promotes a sense of belonging. And then last thing, I mean, courageous vulnerability is just pretty much your willingness to show up and speak your truth, even when it feels uncomfortable. And I have that practice can lead to personal growth and stronger connections as it allows for genuine interactions that resonate with us. Again, vulnerability can be risky and scary, but I truly believe that authenticity is key. I think people are yearning for that. And the only way that we can get there is if each of us individually are willing to be open and honest with ourselves first, right? Holding the mirror up to ourselves first, the introspection and the self reflection, right? Holding the mirror up to ourselves and being honest about who we are, what we've done, what's working, what's not working, and then having that courage to decide to do something different, right? Deciding to break the pattern, deciding to be the one in the family that doesn't allow the toxicity and dysfunction to continue to happen, right? But it starts with you and just being willing and open and honest and authentic, I would say. Yeah, and taking that into business and your life.
I couldn't agree with that more because you started by saying it starts with you. And it does, right? It starts with us. And it really does. Like you can't blame others. It really does start with you. And authenticity, you said, needs to be embraced, right? It creates
Absolutely.
deeper connections. You share truth. You share your challenges and your good things, and it allows for this open space of trust, right? So
Yes.
I love the way you broke down the cyclical ups and downs. That was really good when you learn. And I never put those two like kind of together. I talk about both, but separately. And I think that's brilliant, right? Because you're absolutely right. There are times where you feel like you're on it and then you hit this dive and you're like, what is happening? And it's
Right.
really right. And it's really
Yeah.
because of what you said. You don't know it yet. And so you think you should know it because everybody always thinks they should know everything, but you don't. And that causes that emotional, ups and downs and
Right.
then we hide it. We don't want to talk to anybody about it because then we don't
Right.
think we should. Right. But I
Right.
love that because you talked about, wait, actually that's emotional intelligence. Right.
Hmm.
And for you and for others, it's important to
Yes.
have emotional intelligence because it brings awareness and you start to lead by example. And you are really great about talking about leadership and leading by example, about open and honesty, how that fosters environment. When I was a director, I was the same way. I was very much leading by example. And
Hmm.
those people to this day, and it's been years, still text me New Year's, Christmas, birthdays, all that kind of stuff because they still remember the impact I've had, right? And
Yeah.
that's because when you start to be vulnerable and say, hey, listen, I'm having a bad day, or, this happened and I'm crying somewhere. And they're like, are you okay? I'm like, no, I'm not okay, actually, and I'm a leader, but I'm a human,
Right.
and you talked about being human and honesty and open conversations and how that breeds connection. And I love that you ended that with courageous vulnerability, right? Speaking
Yes.
your truth, that personal growth and connection that causes because people know actually that's just Radisha being truthful. That's who she is. Right. And when
Yeah.
people love that about you, then you want those people around you. Again, back to the nervous system thing, right? Yeah.
Yes.
That was
Yeah.
brilliant. Brilliant. So,
Thank you.
Radisha, I could speak to you forever, as you know. So let's give these women how they can connect with you. And I know that we are giving them something as well that they can take from, away from this conversation and from you so that they can connect with you further. So let's give them that information so they can know where to find Miss Radisha Dixon.
Sure. So on Instagram and Facebook, it's at No More Broken Records. At the link tree is No More Broken Records. That has the website. I want to say it's like Queen Radisha, my.canva. But if you it's easiest to just go to the link tree with the / No More Broken Records, or just to head right to Instagram, No More Broken Records, and you'll find it there. And I have a free PDF for you all that I hope you will also take something from, and so you'll have the link for that as well.
Yes, exactly. So ladies, I will make sure to list your free gift and you will have that from Radisha so that you know how to get in contact with her and what she's about and have this PDF so that you can, really connect with all of the messaging that she just gave you guys because this was amazing. And so the reason I wanted her here is because she is an expert in this and you ladies are out here really trying to do your thing. This is about supporting you on that journey. And it's not always systems and here's what you do about. We do have those type of videos on this summit as well, but it's also about this really digging deep into introspection and
Yeah.
knowing who you are and how to step up fully in who you are because that is important. Ladies, it is important. Okay. So
Authentically.
exactly,
Authentic.
exactly. And that's why I wanted the expert on here talking to you about nurturing. You will hit this in your business. It's just
On
how
your
it
journey.
is. Right.
It's part of
It
the
is.
journey.
It's part of the journey. Yes, exactly. So, Radisha, thank you so much for being here and sharing your wisdom and dropping all of that knowledge on these amazing human beings. Thank you so
Oh,
much.
you're very, very welcome, And if I could just quickly say, one last thing is for the ladies, especially those starting out completely fresh. This is something new for them. Sometimes the eruption that might happen is just making space for this new version of you because
Yeah.
a shift is going to happen, right? There's a past version of you and you're stepping into a different new version of you. So all of the people and things and habits that used to work for you are not going to serve you in this new version. So if you notice the shift and the disconnections and separations, you're probably on the right path because there's
Mhm.
no way for you to stay this if you're actively on a path of change. Okay.
Yeah.
It's impossible. So I wish you all the best and much success and prosperity this year. Thank you.